It is estimated most human beings only use 10% of their brain's capacity. Imagine if we could access 100%. Interesting things begin to happen. Yes?
Professor Norman, my name's Lucy. I just read all your research on the human brain. It's a little rudimentary, but you're on the right track.
Thank you.
I have access to 28% of my cerebral capacity. I can feel every living thing.
Since when did you start writing Chinese?
Since an hour ago.
What happens when she reaches 100%? I have no idea.
Though Morgan Freeman is usually right about pretty much everything, and it wouldn't surprise me if he did come up with an incredible scientific breakthrough, there actually is no untapped 90% of the brain. The clip you just heard was from the trailer to the movie Lucy, a sci-fi drama starring Scarlett Johansson as the title character. The trailer shows that Lucy is implanted with a bag of special drugs, and when the bag bursts, she increasingly gains access to the previously unused 90% of her brain. She now has incredible new skills and is able to stop and reverse time, change her hair color at will, quote, feel every living thing, learn Chinese within an hour, send people flying through the air, and manually hack Morgan Freeman's character's computer. Director of the movie, Luke Benson, admits that he knew the 10% idea was scientifically wrong, but chose to use it anyway. The basis for the idea, however, does have some validity. Benson noted that our neural impulses travel at a phenomenal speed, but we do not control much of our brain's processing. He said, quote, so it was very easy to me to say, what happens if one day we have access to our information? If our brain suddenly makes that connection, and then we can have access to it. We could change our blood pressure, we could change everything, end quote. So perhaps Benson's 10% idea is not as absurd as we thought. My name is Julia Worker, and I'm going to take you through a closer look at the hypothesis of the untapped power of the brain. My idea that even though science has shown that we do use most, if not all, of the physical parts of our brain, perhaps we do not use our brain's full capabilities. Let's take a look at how the theories behind savant syndrome and autism, the cognitive approach to anxiety, and the effect of cognitive games on the brain demonstrate that our brains are truly capable of more than we typically use them for. Evidence suggesting that we don't use all of our brain's capacity is found in the theories behind savant syndrome and autism. Savant syndrome is a medical condition classified by low general intelligence, but a very high concentrated intelligence in a specific area. Daryl A. Treffert is a clinical professor at the University of Wisconsin Medical Society, Madison, and wrote a paper entitled Savant Syndrome, an Extraordinary Condition, a Synopsis Past, Present, and Future. The first case of savant syndrome was recorded in 1887 by John Langdon Down, who termed individuals as idiot savants. The disorder is now known as savant syndrome, and though it is rare, 1 in 10 people with autism show savant skills. One theory about the existence of savant syndrome is the weak central coherence theory, which suggests that because savants have a lower general intelligence, their brain is not distracted by more global patterns, and they are able to focus on perfecting a single skill. This theory suggests that the brain is capable of developing an expertise in one specific subject, but perhaps a typical higher general intelligence limits focus on specific areas. Certain scientists believe that normal people also have the talents of savants, but the talent is never expressed because our brain's focus is diverted elsewhere. I think this theory supports that our brains are capable of much more than we use them for, but our own mental processes sometimes limit our brain's full potential. Additionally, a theory about autism suggests an incredible ability of the brain called neuroplasticity, by which the brain adjusts, forms, and reorganizes synaptic connections, especially in response to learning or experience or injury. Autism is a mental condition characterized by difficulty in communicating and forming relationships and in understanding language and abstract concepts. A well-accepted fact in the medical field is brain lateralization, the idea that the two halves of the human brain are not exactly alike, but specialize in specific functions. That is, the left brain is understood to be primarily responsible for such abilities as speech, mathematical calculating, and logical reasoning, while the right side of the brain controls more visual, spatial, and creative thinking, sensory processing, and facial recognition. Another theory for savant syndrome is that savants have suffered left brain injury, and their right brain has compensated by undertaking some of the left brain's functions. This theory is well supported for autism. A study reported by the National Center of Biotechnology Information compared the brain patterns of 5 children with autism to 8 children without autism. The study measured brain activity during a time of rest and while listening to speech. In the children with autism, the neural activation volume was much greater on the right side of the brain and more diminished on the left side. The reverse pattern was apparent in the control group, which showed the normal pattern of brain activity. This suggests that for these children with autism, their brains had adapted to account for the deficit of the left hemisphere. Their right brains had taken over language control, which is traditionally a left hemisphere function. So perhaps, as savant syndrome suggests, our general intelligence limits the development of our specific skills. Perhaps we really do not use our brain's full capacity in the skills we develop. And as shown in these autism findings, surely certain parts of our brains are capable of adapting new functions if they need to compensate. So, what else are our brains capable of? The reasoning behind certain mental illnesses suggests that we can actually use our brains to consciously control more than we typically do. Anxiety, for example, is sometimes caused by cognitions. That is, a person will suffer from anxiety because of the way they think. I want to note here that there are many complex and interacting causes of anxiety, but for our purpose, we'll just take a look at the cognitive side. Individuals with anxiety will often feel anxious about the prospect of an event, even knowing that they are in no immediate physical danger. Anxiety is often caused by activation of the fight or flight response, an evolutionary response to a perceived environmental threat, which causes an increase in heart rate, bladder relaxation, tunnel vision, dry mouth, slowed digestion, and sending of blood to muscles in the brain. In anxiety, all of this often occurs in the absence of real danger, like how you feel shaky and your heart pounds when you're nervous to give a presentation, even though you know you're not in physical danger. In these cases, thoughts can cause a bodily response, seemingly even without a tangible explanation, thus showing the capability of the brain to have an effect on the body. In a report for the National Center of Biotechnology Information, doctors of philosophy Antonia N. Kazakurikan and Edna B. Foa describe how cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, has been proven effective for a wide variety of mental health disorders. The therapy aims to alter maladaptive emotional responses by helping patients to develop skills and change their thoughts and/or behavior. Early work of psychologists such as Albert Ellis and Aaron T. Beck has paved the way for cognitive therapy, which focuses on changing cognitions or thoughts in order to change emotions and behaviors, and on which CBT therapy is based. The report noted that CBT has been very effective for treating generalized anxiety or disorder, obsessive-compulsive disorder, panic disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, social anxiety, and specific phobias. Thus, cognitive treatment can improve symptoms of anxiety, showing how the brain is adaptable and suggesting the power of our thoughts over our bodies and overall life experience. Furthermore, in an article published by Psychology Today, Daniela Koffer, UC Berkeley Associate Professor of Integrative Technology, and her colleagues conducted an experiment measuring the effect of chronic stress on brain composition and found that prolonged exposure to the stress hormone cortisol is believed to cause neural cells to turn into a type of cell which inhibits connections to the prefrontal cortex, therefore hardwiring certain neural pathways in a way that can cause the brain to be predisposed to a constant state of fight or flight. However, this is not permanent, as the structure of the brain is constantly changing and undergoing changes due to plasticity. Choices of mindset, behavior, and activities can improve the structure and connectivity of the brain. Specifically, regular physical exercise and mindfulness meditation are 2 ways to reduce stress and lower cortisol levels. Therefore, these findings suggest that our brains and thought process have the capacity to affect even our brain structure and overall health. It is a widely held and popular belief that brain games such as Sudoku and crossword puzzles make the brain stronger by challenging it. A 2013 study reported by the Public Library of Science tested the validity of these standards by testing the effect of a brain training game on a variety of cognitive functions in young adults. The study was double-blind, and the control group played Tetris. Participants in both groups played their game for about 15 minutes a day, at least 5 days a week, for 4 weeks. Measures of the cognitive functions were done before and after participation and were split into 8 categories: fluid intelligence, executive function, working memory, short-term memory, attention, processing speed, visual ability, and reading ability. The results show that the brain training game improved executive function, working memory, and processing speed in young adults, while Tetris improved attention and visuospatial ability. The researchers took away from their data that their data does not mean that everyone should or must play brain training games, but that they could be an easy and convenient way to improve cognitive functions and may be relevant for educational and clinical fields. I think that these results show once again the untapped power of the mind. If something as simple as playing a game for 15 minutes a day for just over a month can lead to measurable improvements in key cognitive areas, what is the brain capable of if we commit much more time and focus into stretching its abilities? Could we excel in particular areas, even change one area of the brain to adapt a new function? Could we change our brain makeup and our whole life experience? These things have happened in one way or another, and scientists continue to be fascinated by the endless wonders of the brain. So get in some physical exercise and do some meditation to protect the wonder that is you.